Hey folks, it's your pal Mike Shea from slyflourish.com and twitter.com/slyflourish here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy Dungeon Master Prep. This is a weekly show shot Sundays at 10 a.m. on Twitch, in which I go through the steps from the book Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my weekly friendly local game shop game, Tomb of Annihilation. I thought I'd jump on a couple minutes early this time, just in case we wanted to chat about other things. It's always fun to talk about things other than what's going on in my game. And it's an hour-long show, and much of it is spent kind of poking around through the steps, but we also talk about all things D&D. So if you are on Twitch, I do not have my stupid chat window up because I am ill-prepared. I should have prepared that ahead of time. How far do I have to zoom this window until I get the chat? If you're in the chat, say hello. I will see it eventually. Theater is not theater mode. Is not what I want. Full screen is not what I want. Why can't I see the chat? Oh, it's that little arrow in the corner. Oh, I'm so not used to Twitch chat. Pop out. There we go. I have the Twitch chat. Merric says, good morning. Mark Adiz. Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming. I'm going to minimize that window now. I'm going to stick that in the corner so I'll always see it. And we should be good. So, as I do in previous episodes, we are going to do a quick review of the 8 steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. Hey, Tilda DeWilda is here. Welcome. Thank you for coming. These 8 steps are kind of the cornerstone from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. They are in the book, but they are also available for free if you download the book's sample chapters. There are, I think, 2 or 3 sample chapters that are available for free, and you can download it off of slyflourish.com and then click the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master link, and you'll see a sample chapter there. And the 8 steps and descriptions of the 8 steps are outlined in the sample chapter, so that is available to you for free. The book obviously has a lot of other topics that it covers, but when it comes to the checklist, MSC is here, hello, and Gondolar is here. Good to see you. My mom said she's going to be in chat too. I don't know if she's in chat yet, but she texted me saying she would be here. So if you're there and you're watching, hello, Mom. I saw your tweets about last session. What happened? Oh my God, what happened in the last session? We will get to that as soon as I go through the steps. So let me just rip through the 8 steps. So the 8 steps from the Lazy Dungeon Master checklist are in chapter 2. As I said, there are 8 steps. Not all of these steps are required for prepping your game. You only need to use, so you don't need to use these steps at all. All of us have our own checklist, and many times we have a checklist that's different. These are the ones that I suggest in the book, but they are certainly optional. All of them are optional. Everything we do for Lazy DM Prep is optional. But after thinking about it a long time, refining it, and gathering lots of information from lots of different places, these are the 8 steps that I saw that seemed to make the most sense for me, certainly, and I think for others. So step 1 is review the characters. Who are the characters in the game? What do they want? What are their motivations? What drives them to go on adventure? And what little character hooks can you tug on during your game? We make this the first step so that we kind of implant them into our brains. So when we're doing all the rest of our prep for our game, we have the characters first and foremost in our mind. They are the most important actors in the game. Thus, we should spend a little bit of time reviewing them. And you'll see we will do that. Create a strong start. How is your game going to begin? What will tell the players, hey, everybody, we are now playing D&D. That's an important thing to do. I think it's certainly within the top 3 most important steps. I think review the characters, create a strong start, and do the secrets are probably the top 3. But it can vary depending on what you're doing. Outline potential scenes. So the strong start draws them into the game. How does it begin? It's the one time when a DM has control over the game. What do we do? Outline potential scenes. This is a feel-good one where it's like, well, if we think we know, where do we think the game might go? And all we do is jot down a few things. We don't write out long scenes. We don't build a whole bunch of preset sort of stuff because we kind of don't know what the players are going to do or what choices they're going to make. So instead, we write a list so that we have a general idea about where it's going to go, but we don't necessarily need to fill it out, and we should be ready to throw that out. That one is definitely optional. That one was in and out of the book a few times during revisions, but I eventually decided to keep it. Define secrets and clues. This one, I think, again, is one of the top 3 most important ones. And it's probably the one that requires the most work. What are the 10 things that the characters can discover in the next session? It doesn't talk about how they discover them, just what they might discover. These could be bits of history. These could be information that is directly relevant to their current task. This can be information about NPCs. This can be all different kinds of things. So anything that, and they're like tweet-sized things. These are tweet, like the old tweets, the 140 character tweets, not these big ass paragraphs we got in Twitter now. So like a sentence, in a single sentence, what is something that the characters can learn? And we'll be going through that today, so you'll see that. Develop fantastic locations. If you are not running a published adventure, or you don't know what the locations are going to be that act as the backdrop to the game, this is your time to think about those locations. I like to think of these as the backdrop behind scenes in a play. Even if it's an improv play, you still want to have an area where it's taking place. What is that area? What are the 3 things that make this area interesting to the characters, and what makes it fantastic? In a published adventure, often we have this done for us. So today we're not going to go over it because we're in the Tomb of Annihilation. There's lots of fantastic things going on in the tomb. I don't need to do any prep for that. They're just there. Most prep I need to do is read it. Outline important NPCs. Certainly, role-playing is a big portion of the game, so who are the most important NPCs that the characters are likely to interact with? What is their name? What is an archetype from popular fiction that we can use to help role-play them? We try to keep it brief, and many times we just improvise. We improvise. So like last week, I spent some time thinking about this intelligent lizard that the characters would run into, and they just did not resonate with the lizard. They're like, get out of here, we don't like you, and they threw rocks at him, or they kind of ignored him. So he never really came up, but we spent a little bit of time on it, which is why you don't want to spend a lot of time on this stuff, because it may not run up. Choose relevant monsters. Again, if the monsters are not preset for you, this is your opportunity to kind of look at monsters, look at monster ecology, and decide what monsters make sense for the game, and think about them more than just a stat block. Think about what it means. Like the relationship between wraiths and specters is actually pretty important. And if you read them, like wraiths and specters are different. So just saying like, well, a wraith is essentially an angrier and higher CR specter is not a really great way to think about a wraith. And the fact that wraiths create specters matters. So read the text on those and kind of get in mind. These creatures are different. And if you recall, I think in both Storm King's Thunder and in Tomb, like in Storm King's Thunder, every time they had like a giant area, they said, go read the monster manual entry on hill giants, right? Like that's important to run hill giants here. And I think that even in a published adventure, like reading about the monsters that are going to show up kind of matters. Tomb of Annihilation and specifically the Tomb of the Nine Gods is very different. So, mostly it's like read on a Sararak and understand that, but you don't have to get too much into a lot of the monsters that are here because the tomb is so flavorful on its own. And finally is what magic items might the characters discover? Magic items really matter to characters. They really matter to players, but yet they are something that the DM has full control over. It helps us to know what kind of magic items the players have, the characters have, and what kind of things they need or want. In general, and then we can use a mixture of random rewards and preordained rewards. Tomb of Annihilation is packed with magic items. They're crazy powerful magic items because it's such a dangerous place. So I don't really think about this too much because they're just going to get them anyway. So that is where the steps. Those are the 8 steps. And again, you can get that for free. So let's talk a little bit about the catastrophe that occurred in my last game. I think I mentioned before how hard it is for me to kill characters. I don't like doing it. I think I'm an easy DM. Like I can count on one hand the number of player character deaths I've got, and it's I just don't kill characters that much. I'm not one of these hardcore like everything's got to be lethal kind of DM. But boy, this is a lethal adventure, and the Tomb of the Nine Gods is lethal. And man, when players make bad decisions, it goes really poorly, and that's what happened. So there are a few areas in the tomb that are just absolutely brutal. We were on level 4, and one of the areas on level 4 that was just really, really bad are these areas here called the elemental chambers. And it's 4 interlocked teleporting chambers that are each based on the elements. And you have to figure out a puzzle before you are killed going through. And you teleport from one cell to the next, which means if characters are doing it independently, they kind of don't know what happened to the character who went there previously. So it's really dangerous. And, the real right answer is you should all generally go together, right? Like you should try, even though it's going to hurt, you should all tend to go at the same time so that you can see what the other people are up to. But in this case, everybody sort of went separate and they started figuring out, but one character in particular, our druid named Warren, stayed back. And so he was sitting in hallway 46, and then coming around the corner was one of the tomb guardians. And he saw the tomb guardian and he did some stealth checks and he kind of hid around the corner down south of 47. My mouse cursor's not working, but imagine near that stairwell to the south. He hid around that corner and it kept coming. And rather than kind of run into the elemental cell and sort of go with everybody else, he decided to go back into room 49. And he knew what was in 49. They had gone through 49. They fought the Bodax and ran. And the door was open. And he kind of, I think that, he ran in anyway, and he ran in and the door slammed shut, and now it's him fighting two Bodax by himself rather than with a group. And he saw the option to, remove his own hand to escape, but he's also like, there's a Tomb Guardian out there, so that's not helping me. And he stood his ground and he fought the Bodax, and they started slamming him with their death beam, eye beams. And a few of those he failed to save, and then he went dark. And then he's like, well, what does that mean? And I said, well, we'll find out, right? So I just had his vision went black. And then I went back and went through all this stuff with everyone else. And this is like this is a crazy area with the elemental cells and then getting in here and then not stepping on any of the pots. But everybody handled the tomb well. It was just the elemental cells that were really, really brutal. And but they got out. And so finally, after they all figured this out, they teleported out. And when you teleport out, you end up here in room 50. Which was the magic mirror room. And in the week previous, they shattered the mirror and every creature known to, every creature like burst free from this thing. And they show up here and they look down the hall and here comes Warren walking down the hall. And they're like, hey, Warren's here. This is great. And all the players are like, oh, Mike was nice and he got him to escape somehow. And then Warren opens his mouth and his eyes get all starry. And it turns out it's not Warren, it's a Bodak. It's like a Bodak Warren. And then they had to fight this Bodak Warren and they killed it. And then now they're standing there. The end of the game was them standing in this hallway with their dead companion Warren, who had turned into this undead monstrosity, standing there. So the player was cool with it. He was kind of like, oh, what did I do wrong? I was like, you split the party. And like, number one rule, don't split the party. And that's exactly what you did. And he ran into a room with a bunch of death stuff. So there's like no way to handle that because it's like it was a cascading of bad decisions. And, that happened. So anyway, he made a new character. He's got a Dragonborn Sorcerer as his new character. I'll probably recommend to him that it's one of the creatures that popped out of the magic mirror. We just didn't happen to see it when it shattered. That maybe he kind of falls out of one of the shards. He's like the last creature out and kind of looks around and, is non-hostile. I always one of my cheap shots to D&D is whenever a new character is introduced, when all of the other characters look at them, I say something like, immediately upon gazing on this new hero, you recognize the virtue in their heart and the value to the companionship that they will have. So it's like, don't think, let's get past all the conversations about how they're going to, how you're going to have to realize that they're not an enemy, because that's just tiring. So it will be actually the second new character that we've got. We have another new character that just joined last week. It was a friend of a friend who stepped in because one of our other players became a alternate player. And Alistair is the name of the new character. It is a fallen Aasimar paladin who tried protecting other people from the tomb, and they're all dead, and now wants to protect this new group. And he's an Onyx figurine that was given to him by his father in Neverwinter. He's from Neverwinter. He has this Onyx figure, and he wrote a long backstory, and I sent him a thing saying, hey, just the backstories are great, and I love people who are into their characters. This place is lethal, and who knows if you'll have it next week. But he's a very good player, and I think it's going to be the character is a fun character, and he enjoyed what happened. Was the group still enjoying the game, or were they sad like the Strahd game? So there was frustration. There was passive aggression frustration, I think, with the idea like, why did you do that, right? Like, they're not there, so they're not giving him advice, but it's like, that was a really terrible choice. And so, yeah, we're going to put Warren down in the dead. So not terrible, right? Like that one, they're like, well, what are you gonna do? Like it wasn't. I mean, and I didn't mention this. I actually had another character who died in my Wednesday game this past week that did break my heart. It was a Tabaxi rogue assassin who had been with the group the entire time since Portnai and Zaru, who went into the black chest, and someone pressed the button and he was disintegrated, and that was the end of the Tabaxi. And that, boy, it hurt. I'm like, man, I love that character, and the character hadn't quite finished his arc yet, and yeah. So this, I have to say, so I love this adventure. I love Tomb of Annihilation, but I think more so than all of the other problems that we've heard. There's a lot of problems with Tomb that people have brought up. The fact that the death curse is a little too aggressive, and it means that you don't really want to do exploration is one, but that's easily fixed. Just make, don't do that, right? Just have the death curse be this sort of background thing that you don't say like everybody's losing a hit point every day. Like that, you don't really need to do that. What else? There were some other problems that people brought up with Tomb that are, NPCs can be too powerful. Like when you have Artist Cimber with the freaking Ring of Winter and Dragonbait with his Holy Avenger, that they can totally dominate the game. So again, if you know that ahead of time, don't do it, right? Like they never actually joined my group, but you can kind of have them not join a group. So be careful with the NPCs that join the party, I think is a big one, and know what their exit strategy is. I wrote a whole article about this. Both of those I think are easily fixed, but to me, what has been a problem for me running this adventure is the fact that the type of game shifts significantly before the Tomb and after the Tomb. Are you offline time from the game? Are your offline time from the game keep your friendship strong? I'm not sure I understand. Yeah, like nobody's mad. The friendships are fine. It's a store group, but these are all people I've played with for a long time, except for the new fellow that just joined, and everyone's cool. So yeah, no one's mad. The character who died isn't mad. He's already making a new one. So, hey, my mom is here. Hi, Mom. Everyone say hello to my mom, Ivanka Sooth. Do we spend time with each other outside the game time? Not with this group. We only really get together for this game time, but we have gamed together for a long time. This is a pre, it's not a drop-in group. It's a group where people have been together for a long time, so we know each other pretty well, and there's no animosity. What else? Oh, so the problem with the game. So yeah, a hard problem with this adventure is that the style of adventure is very storyteller, exploration, lots of interesting intrigue, lots of stuff that can go on with your character. And it's very story-focused game. Really interesting stuff in Omu with dealing with red wizards and dealing with the Fate of the Night Serpent and all that stuff. There's lots of really kind of interesting inner sort of interacting elements. And then you get to the Tomb of the Nine Gods, and it's just a meat grinder. Like, not every room is really terrible, but some of them, like that black onyx trap, you turn the key and you're dead. Like, it's 70 damage. And if you drops you to 0, you're dead. So some of it is so and I get it. Like, okay, well, it's, right, duh, it's a Sararak is on the cover of the book, and in Tomb of Horrors was the worst adventure, brutal adventure ever. Maybe. I don't know if that's true. So it can be really, it's just such a shift. And I think it's a shift for me in particular, because I'm not a killer DM. The players are not ready. And I told them, I was very clear outside of the game. I said, this place is really lethal. In fact, with the Wednesday group, I said, you guys can basically say that your group that got to the tomb and got the things don't have to be the group that goes in. That, the red wizards are like, hey, we can send mercenaries in there. It doesn't have to be you guys, because this place is a meat grinder. So why don't we send in a group of people? And the player's like, no, we're going in. And it's like, all right, you're going in. So now they're there, and the player whose character died on Wednesday also wrote a note, and she wasn't upset about it. She said, it was a big deal, and I'm like, I'm heartbroken. I love that character, and I've got other characters that I love, and it'll be really hard to see him go. So I just don't think we're ready for that kind of brutal death, and so I feel like a fun way to run this. I don't know how you end it, but sort of like if there's a way to run this as like 2 adventures, and adventure 1 is get to the tomb and get all 9 cubes and then open the door, right? That's the end of the adventure, is when you open the door. And then a whole other campaign is the tomb and the meat grinder. And that way, like, you always have 2 characters and you don't really have backstory on them because you know that they're gonna die. So do we have any epilogue with the group when we're done? Like, have a beer or reminisce about what happened? We chat and email a little bit, and we'll chat about it at the game. But we don't really get together. Everybody's real busy, and we don't really get together outside of the game to talk about it. We do with my Wednesday group a little bit more. That's my home group, and we do a little bit more there. But there's a fair amount of reminiscing about things, and yeah, we talk about it. So, So I feel like that dramatic shift in lethality. I guess it's just lethality, but it's also like in the style. This meat grinder versus exploration is a big shift for me, and I think it's for me it's a difficult part to manage in this adventure. Beck says, do you ever directly connect your campaigns? Seems like everyone dying could be an opportunity to do something like go appeal to the Raven Queen. Possibly, and I have a feeling, so I already hinted that, like, the character who died on Wednesday, I already hinted that he's still kind of around, that a shade sort of took over. One of his things is he had this dagger of the Night Serpent that he'd been carrying around since the beginning, and he threw it into one of the mouths of one of the demon heads in the tomb. But the demon head's not a annihilation demon head. It was like a portal, and it was full of shadows that they fought. So it turns out there's another shadow in there who kind of took it and sort of absorbed some of the life force of that was stored in the dagger by the character. There's a stone in the river is the name of the character. So now there's like this shadow stone that's out there who has this deadly dagger and is sort of wandering around the tomb. And I hinted at the fact that the 3 hags, the Sown sisters, have the shade. They're like, working with the shade. So there's like character stuff there. I think the same can happen with Warren. There's actually lots of opportunities in the tomb to sort of bring characters back, clones and other such things. Probably not all of them though, especially considering the number of deaths that have occurred. And it's also kind of at the end. So it's I think people are more like, hey, I had this character that I love that got to level 9 and now it's dead. Even bringing the character back doesn't necessarily bring back their fun of the character because they don't actually play it anymore. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. And I'm gonna go a little easier. What I would love, and like I kept thinking about with that black onyx box, is like, what sort of permanent thing can I do to a character that really, really shakes them up, but doesn't kill them. And I think a good example was the idea that in Punchy. So let's look at the characters for this game. Do I have I'm still sitting on the wrong screen. Deep. So when we talk about the steps of Lazy Dungeon Master, first one is who are the characters. So for this game, we have Smoke, the Tabaxi Ranger, Ranger/Rogue, who I forget who they're possessed by. They're possessed by one of the trickster gods, but I can't remember which one. I'm terrible at that. I should remember that. I should write it down for next week. Gabriel Tharmond is one who died. Gabriel died fighting a sea hag, and then was resurrected into Tharmond using the souls that the hag was carrying. But that also caused the death curse to escalate. So that was one where they had been doing all these side quests, and it was like a good opportunity for them to be like, get back to your main mission here. And they did it because they actually did manage to pull a soul out of the soulmonger, but doing so like escalated the soulmonger. So that's fun. Anyway, it means that Gabriel's still around, and I've also had like lots of hints and dreams that Gabriel's soul was plucked out of the soulmonger and is being kind of manipulated by the Sown sisters. So there's definitely an opportunity there. Ogechi is a shadow magic human sorcerer tied to the Ashodo, who is really torn between a whole bunch of, I think, like 4 different personalities now. Ogechi is possessed by one of the trickster gods, but I can't remember which one. It might be Ankh. No, it's not Ankh. Gabriel is possessed by Ankh. But Ogechi just got possessed by one of them. So he's possessed by... he's the key to the door to open the Night Serpent, to the door to the Night Serpent lair. He was also touched by... he was also touched by a Sararak in one of the chambers, and now might be a future apprentice of a Sararak. and also has a trickster god and has a tie to the Ashodo, which is a shadow giant. So lots of different personalities going on. Everybody's possessed by like 3 or 4 things, which is kind of fun. Lots of opportunities there. It seems complicated, but I don't mind. Mark asks, what was Gabriel Tharmond? Did the Gabriel Tharmond player want to be possessed, or did it come out from the story? That was sort of like a good improvisational thing where I think I said like Gabriel could come back, and then he said, well, I kind of he wanted to switch from a sorcerer to a bard, and so it came back that now he is a bard, but he still is a Aasimar bard. That looks human most of the time, except when Gabriel sort of comes out. So he's sort of a mix. And yeah, that came about through sort of improv and back and forth discussion. So I didn't push it and he didn't force it. But it was, we both thought, wouldn't it be cool if X, and then move from there. Punchy is our Kenku samurai, who is also possessed by a bunch of things. Possessed by Obalaka, but also is now actually dead, had died fighting the King of Feathers, and became a avatar, or sort of an avatar, like a creature of Zugtamoy. So whenever he is wounded, he looks down and he's got vines and plants and chlorophyll filling his body instead of whatever's inside Kenku's blood and guts and bones, I guess. And he was also touched by Sarek, but that was a long time ago. And now he hears Zugtamoy, but also Zugtamoy and Obalaka. And I have a feeling this might be fun, that Zugtamoy and Obalaka have become sort of, So imagine like in Game of Thrones, you have like the tree druid guy who's like part tree. I have a feeling that like Obalaka will have been taken over by Zugtamoy, and now kind of they speak together as one. So they still have like the presence of Obalaka, but Zugtamoy is sort of pulling the strings. So I think that could be fun. And then we have the new one, Alistair, who I mentioned before. The Aasimar Paladin has an onyx dog named Barnaby and came from Neverwinter. And has been trapped in the tomb for some unknown amount of time, and helped them fight one of the tomb guardians that showed up. So, and then Warren is dead, and Huitziline, the paladin of Ubtao, Huitziline, the player is on. He's now a alternate player. So, Mark says, I notice as the game continues, you have more and more info on each character, and there's a lot of possessions. Yes, there are lots of possessions. I actually really like... there are a few things that I really gravitate towards as a DM, and I don't know that everyone probably has their things, like things I love. And magic items and being possessed is one of the things that I love a lot. I'm going to turn my gain down a little. I noticed that I was hitting the peak a little bit too heavy. Is the audio coming in okay, or am I clipping out, or how does it sound? I just noticed I'm running in the red a lot of times. I turned my gain up because I was listening back and it sounded like I was dim. So tell me if I'm good. Anyway, what the hell was I talking about? I forgot what I was talking about. Strong start? I don't know. Somebody remind me what I was talking about. Oh, I was answering a question. Possessions, things I love. So the thing I love about possessions, like magic, I throw a lot of intelligent magic items, and even ones that are really subtle magic items, where they just kind of give you a little hint. And the reason why is it's such a great way to invoke secrets and clues. It's such a great way to tug on a character. It's such a great way to show them things, right? And it's wonderful. Like dreams are such an easy way to be like, as soon as they've been dealing with the Sohn sisters now forever. Oh yeah, that's right. They actually which group did it? I think it was this group that set up a, it happened to Warren. So it happened to Warren before Warren died. They set up a big, what is the big shell that you can rest in, right? I forget what it's called. There's a spell you can cast, and it creates a shell that you're safe and nothing can penetrate, and it's really easy to get into. It can be dispelled, but generally speaking, monster type things can't get in. And in the tomb, whenever the shell pops up, it's opaque, so they can't see out either, which is nice because that way you can surprise them with things like, a million crawling claws. Anyway, the Sohn sisters can get in there because they can plane shift. My hair keeps weird stuff. So I had one of the Sohn sisters show up and nightmared Warren, which meant he couldn't get a rest and he started losing hit points, and that was really scary. And now they're like, man, This is terrible, you know? So, I like that idea. Like the Sohn sisters, because they can plane shift, they can get through things that the players might set up to try to protect them from nastiness. So that's a fun thing. I don't know how that came with possession. I don't know. I love possessions, and the fact that everybody's possessed by like 3 or 4 things is actually really funny. And I just don't pay that much attention to it. So it's like it's really real. It'd be real easy to be like, oh my god, all these connections. I now have the equivalent of 38 characters instead of 6, because everybody's possessed by 3 things. But I just don't worry about it. Now I'll tug on whichever one I want to tug on at the moment. I don't worry about how they all interact and what plots they have and all sorts of. It's fine, but it's why make life hard. What else do we have? So the strong start. I think the strong start is going to be the intro. Introduction to Brian's character from the shard in the mirror. So there'll still be like a big shard, and I think it will break. And as it breaks, Brian's character will show up. I think that will be an interesting thing. Now, if there's something else like, Warren's corpse is right there, so there's a good opportunity to like get a message. Like if either, I don't know, if there's so there's a secret and clue that has occurred to me. So one of the things that's interesting about the tomb is there's all these like major traps and all of the tombs of the 9 trickster gods. The literature mancer. Endergrim is working on a literature mancer. You just grab books. I'm gonna hit you with a book. Literature mancer. By the way, this is the Lazy Dungeon Master workbook in print. By the way, I talked about that. Looks awesome. Like I'm bringing my copy with me today for my game. However, it had one small problem, which is really minor, which is on this page, it printed on the inside border instead of the outside border like every other page. So I almost thought, I was like, man, no one cares because it's the OGL page, right? Like who the hell reads the OGL page anyway? But it looks bad. Like it clearly looks like, an error. And I just didn't want people to be like, I mean, no one would care. Like it's totally usable, but people would be like, well, still, how do you screw that up? So it meant 2 weeks to fix, but we're going to fix it. In the meantime, other good news, slight divergence for those who backed Lazy Dungeon Master. The paper copy of the original book with a spine that lines up nicely is now... this one is a sample run. This one is actually not one of the ones that's going to get published because this is the higher quality. It uses the higher quality art, which we're only doing for the hardback. But I made a softcover version because I had all this trouble getting the other softcover version to work. But that one is now ready for proofing as well. So I'm going to proof as soon as this guy gets fixed and this guy is fixed. I'm going to proof both at the same time, and then I think they're both going to be fine. I have a feeling they're good. And then in the meantime, the hardcover is good with a spine that lines up as well. So I expect that in the next 2 weeks, all 3. Oh, I'm banging on my mic. All 3 copies of the book, the softcover, hardcover, and workbook, will be ready for backers to order for the price of printing and shipping. So it took a lot of iterations to get that right. And it took a lot of time. It cost me probably 2 months, I think. It's probably a 2-month process to get all these working right, which kind of sucks. But this is a product that I know I will be happy with for the rest of my life. So what's a couple of months? And it's all been on PDF. So I've seen a lot of people that actually, perfection is not easy, is correct. Being a perfectionist is also no fun. Although I'm not really a perfectionist. I was going to say something about this one. Oh, I've seen people that have been already printing out the Lazy Dungeon Master workbook and spine and spiral binding it. One disappointment I had with the book, and this is not going to be fixed, is that it is not staple bound like I had hoped. And it's because it's literally 2 pages too long. It's 4 pages too long. And I can't cut anything. So it is glue bound, but it's really thin. And it's, bends nicely. This and I have been really beating the crap out of this book to see how it will hold up. And one of the thoughts I had is I could actually take it to Kinko's. They can strip off the spine and spiral bound it, and then it lays flat. But it really lays flat anyway. It's fine. So I don't mind that it's not staple bound that much. Like, I don't think it would actually sit any flatter if it was staple bound. And like I said, I've been beating the crap out of this thing. The other thing is I've been using it. I use it at my Wednesday game, and it is really nice. Like, I use the Madness table. I use the random name table. I love this book. Like, I'm really, I'm pleased with it. I had considered making a 5x8 version, like a pocket, not quite a pocket size version, but a smaller version of it where like it doesn't have descriptive text as much and probably doesn't have the lazy layer descriptions in it, but maybe like 4 maps, that are just, kind of generic maps, and then a few tables that are generally set for like level 1 to 5. What I realize is like there's hardly anything I'd really want to cut from this, and it's not that much different. So, it was still like 28 pages long, even when I said like, well, I got to have this. Like, I don't need to have the full description of Theater of the Mind, but I got to have like the GM and player guidelines. I might do something like that. I'm not sure, but then I'm like, it's not that much different from this. So, yeah. Bex says, can't wait to have a copy of the workbook and keep in your kit. I'm going to have mine in my kit today. So it's the first time it's added my kit. But I ordered like 5 proofs because I want to get a good sample size to make sure that the printing comes out right. So I always order 5 instead of 1. And I'm going to keep them everywhere. I'm going to have one at home that I keep around. And it's nice. Like, if I do say so myself, being the guy that wrote it, I just, like we have random monster tables in here for random dungeons. It's great. It's really nice. It's only 2 pages long. Xanathar's has a lot like that. Random town events. Hey, you arrive at a town on market day, and everybody there is downtrodden during a hailstorm on market day. And as they look into the sky, a cyclopean behemoth rises in the distance. That's what's going on in the town. That's all 1 page. So anyway, enough of that. So secrets. So one of the things I've discovered about the tomb, if anybody has any questions about the books, by the way, please let me know. I'm so happy with how these turned out. Man, they look really good. I just hope, I just want to get them out soon. As soon as this gets approved. This one I'm waiting for it to go through what they call pre-media, which is where the printer makes sure that everything works out. And it should, because I literally changed 1 page. But it's always tricky because sometimes there's regression problems. On the assumption that this goes through, and this one's ready to proof, so all I need to do is order them at the same time. I'm trying to save myself $25 by ordering them all at the same time, because I order them 3-day air, and it costs about $25 for 3-day air shipping, and that's so I don't have to wait 3 weeks instead of 3 days, because the backers are worth it, and they paid for it, so I can afford the $25. But why spend $50 if I have to wait anyway? So one of the things that occurs to me about the tomb of the 9 gods is that the only required thing you have to do there is get a hold of the skeleton keys. You don't have to do anything else. You can walk into a room and be like, yeah, this looks bad. So in some cases as a DM, you'll want to make sure that dealing with the skeleton will require going and dealing with a tomb. The skeleton key, it also doesn't make sense that the skeleton keys are wandering around, except for the fact that maybe they're invisible to... For some reason, the skeleton keys are invisible to Withers and the Stone Sisters, which means they can't find them. They don't know where the hell they are. And they sort of got lost. I think doesn't. Can you still order if you aren't a backer? Yes. And a little known interesting thing is I can't even make them available to backers without making them available to everyone. It's the weird thing about the way the print on demand works is I have to put it up as a product on RPG Now the same time that I can give discount codes to the backers. It has to be a product that's available. So they will be available for purchase on the same day that the backers are ordering them. The only difference is you'll be paying full price and the backers are getting them at the discount. However, I think this one is $8 retail, or it's going to be $8. I think it's $8. Yeah, it's going to be $8 for this one. The backers get it for like $3.50 because it's short. It's only 48 pages, but it is full color. It's nice full color map. So that's why I thought like I could even make a cheaper one where I could sell it for like $5. That was black and white. But I don't think I'm gonna bother. This one looks good. So this will be about $8 retail. This is the soft cover, and I think it'll be $12, $12 or $13 for everyone, and just under $6 for backers. And yeah, you can order it that way. And then the hardback version is your collector's edition. So this one I do not expect a deal. This one is, I think it's $16 for backers and $26 for. This one's never been opened. It's making the cracky noise. And so this one, the hardcover version has two features that make it different. One is it is hard, it's a hardcover book. But two is it also is using the highest quality color. So the colors are super, super vibrant and deep in this one, like really dark. The darks are really dark in this one. So the contrast of the images are higher than the other one, which is also, and it's using they're all using, I think high quality. They're all using the same weight of paper. But the ink depth is a lot bigger and a lot more expensive. So that's why it's $26. It's $26 for the hardcover retail. But yeah, they'll all be available. And there's slight discounts if you get the PDF. Not just a couple bucks off if you get the PDF and the softcover. All right, enough of that. Secrets. Skeleton keys. So only the skeleton keys. That's a secret. Another secret is if you're on levels 5, 6, and 7 of the tomb, you're actually in the back rooms. So if you think of the tomb as like bad Disneyland, when you get to, I guess it's 5 and 6, right? So the first 4 levels are intended to eat characters, eat adventurers. But level 5 is like the machinery that sort of runs the tomb, right? And you're not really meant to be down here. I don't think. Like, I haven't read anything, and this is all, right, this is the Great Door. And I have no idea how I'm going to build this room out. I don't think I'm going to. Everyone else builds like a big fancy version of that room. I've seen a lot of really good ones. I don't think I'm going to do that. So the idea is like, you're the characters, like the tomb that is sort of sucking the life out of characters that go into it. Those are really levels 1 through 4. And then as soon as you get to 5 and 6, that's when, Withers's orders are keep them in the main areas and draw pain from them. This was something the Wednesday group figured out. Like when the Wednesday group lost a character, they started to have like a vigil for the character, and a voice came down and said, "Rest." And they knew they were safe to take a long rest at that point. And the reason they were allowed to do that is because the tomb liked their mourning of their dead friend. That the pain, the sadness and pain that they felt for that whole time they were resting, the tomb was like drawing it in like sunlight. and they realized that. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. So this is sort of a secret that I'm injecting directly into a character, and it's part of the strong start, which is that I think Brian's character will have seen the door. I think that will be good. What other secrets can they learn? The secrets are the hard part of the prep, I think. They take the longest for me, but they are also the most important. They really get across the things that matter. Oh. Secrets can also cascade, so you can have one like slight hint and then a hint that's actually the full thing. So like there's a tremendous power that powers the tomb with nearly limitless energy, right? Like a nuclear reactor that's powering all of the energy of this tomb and keeping it in order and moving big things. And the reality is the reality is that the power is a giant chain that has been pulled from the plane of Mechanus. This is the plane where the Modrons exist. Huge mechanical plane, and there's an enormous chain that kind of is flowing through, and a Serac has pulled that chain into this world and then back out again, and they can use that moving chain as almost an infinite source of power. That looks like 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have enough secrets, so we can think more about secrets. Fantastic locations are in the adventure, so I don't really worry about that. The other thing is I don't know where they're going to go now. Like they have finished all of level 4. And I think they're going to, I'll probably have to do some hints and secrets. I think they have 2 of the skeleton keys at this point. So they're probably due for a 3rd key. So scenes that might take place are... Now, I'd like to make so when we think about a monster, we'll do a couple of things. I'm jumping around a bit. One of the things I like is, so in the adventure, the skeleton keys are made of skeletons. But I think it's kind of interesting that the more sides the skeletons have, the more sides a skeleton has, the more powerful it is. So I want to throw some really powerful monsters at them, particularly skeletal monsters. So we're going to go down to our monsters here, and we're going to look for undead. And I'll poke through here. So a bone naga would be an interesting one. Like maybe a more powerful bone naga, some really powerful spells. Like an invisible bone naga. Well, let's take a look. So I looked at bone naga. That's not bad. Oh, bone claw. Oh, now we're talking. Look at this guy. CR12. Yeah, bone claw. What's the bone claw's story? failed lich, right? So this is like a failed, one of the failed, one of the failed apprentices of Ogechi, or of Asarak, and maybe Ogechi can see. This is a secret, all right? See, that's where the story matters. Like Bone Claws are failed liches, and they serve an immortal master. Bone Claws are badass. What else do we have here? Oh, we got a lot of things. So Deathlocks. Let's take a look at this Deathlock Mastermind. And what are they? Yeah, so Deathlock could be like another sort of patron of Grave Bolts. They're pretty nasty. One good way to beef up a monster like this is just give it lots of actions. Like let it cast a couple spells. So Grave Bolts, maybe it hits 3 targets with Grave Bolts instead of just 1. And maybe it can do like, Deadly Claw on a spell, or maybe it can cast a spell as a legendary action. So we can just, just cheat and give these guys a lot of actions, and it's a great way to get the. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, Bex says, seeing yours gives me peace. Glad I caught this prep session. I used the checklist for the first time last week and wasn't sure if it was cheating or not for multiples of my secrets and clues to refer to the same event detail. I mean, there's no cheating. You can't cheat with this. There's no right way, So if it works, it works. And if you do it totally differently, it works for you, man. You're great. So, yeah, like I change this stuff all the time. Like the fact that I have 8 steps in the book and I almost only ever do 3, and then Beck says, seeing yours gives me peace of mind. Do you ever punch up a location or otherwise don't feel particularly fantastic? Sure, yeah. And one way is like I'll pull out my lazy Dungeon Master workbook and I'll go to, where is it? One of the tables in here is random monuments, right? So you go to your random monuments and you add something. You'll say there's a dark elven obsidian meteorite, an obsidian meteorite that is glyphed by dark elves and is oozing this strange ooze from another world. Wow, I just randomly picked some stuff on here, and you can kind of add a thing, like add a feature, throw a meteorite that the dark elves have worshipped in the center of whatever you're doing. Can work. Ooh, look at this Devkarin Lich. This is your new Ravnica stuff. This might be, actually, this Lich is probably a perfect Lich for, this is probably a perfect Withers. So it's still legendary, but it's slightly lower on the challenge rating than an actual Lich, I think. What's an actual Lich? Yeah, Lich is CR21, and this is like CR14, so the Devkarin Lich is a really nice monster. I think we might use that. What else do we have? That giant skeleton is really great too. I love those guys. I use that, and man, it beat the crap out of people. I gave it 4 scimitar attacks to do 15 damage apiece. Oof. Jared von Salvo. Is that a... Oh, look at this. Who the hell is this? The Golgari Guildmaster is a Devlican Necromancer Lich. He's got 180 hit points, CR22, slightly higher than a normal Lich. Only 7th level spells, no 9th level spells. That's pretty nasty. Adding creatures that expand on the story with failed apprentices. Yeah. I always like to add a little story. I don't know if that, What's this? Undead shape changer. This has got to be one of Hallister's apprentices. Mind drinkers, mind flayer, lich. Minotaur skeletons are a good way if you want some more powerful skeletons. Nightwalkers are terrible. Skull Lord. Oh. Skull Lord could also be a... That might be a good... So what do we have? Ooh, summon skeleton. Yeah, Skull Lord is like the final, 12-sided. Might be better than the Deathlock Mastermind. So the Bone Naga could be 6-sided. The Bone Claw could be 10-sided, 8-sided. And the Skull Lord would be 12-sided. So they have to fight some nasties. What is the story of the Skull Lord? It's high CR 15. Plot against themselves. Interesting. So maybe it's like it's trying to it's always plotting. So what have I got? The reality is in this one I'm relying heavily on the adventurer because I don't know where they're gonna go. So yeah. So I don't worry about magic items. I'm not worrying about fantastic locations. NPCs. I still want to bring in Gilly the Aboleth. I think that will be fun. I don't know that they have any other major NPCs. I think Withers is kind of done with their BS. Oh, did we decide Withers is going to be... what was the stat block we're going to use for Withers? Instead of... It's like a lower level lich. This is the previous page. The Devkaran lich. I can even put a URL in here. So when I mail it to myself, I can load it and get it on my phone. Finger of Death, man. Ooh. Interesting thing about Finger of Death is it is not one of the spells that if you drop to 0, you die, though you'd think it would be. Oh, one other not a shameless plug because it's not for my own thing. The Blasphemies of Bol Bararish. Oh, that didn't work. Here we go. Borbalish. So, if you have not seen these, he has them up on. Let's go. No. Drive-through RPG. I need to bring these with me. Oh, it's slow. So Rob Schwab, a veteran D&D designer for many years, including heavily into 4th edition, and also the creator of Shadow of the Demon Lord, has put out a series. He has a new imprint, and he has put out a series of... oh, come on. What is this now? Looks like RPG Now is having some trouble, or Drive-Thru RPG is having a little trouble. He put out a product called The Blasphemies of Bor Bararish, which is Rob Schwab, not anagrammed, whatever it is, with all the letters mixed up. And it's a series of 24 spells that are built from this like really nasty school of magic. So lots of necrotic and pulling the blood out of creatures or infesting their insides with bugs and all kinds of terrible things. And they are the perfect spells for replacing spells that you find monsters have, like any kind of undead spellcaster. I'm not spelling that right. It's a great way to like replace the spell. Any kind of undead spellcaster would really benefit from these spells, and your players are going to just be scared to death of them. They're really nasty. So I printed them out, and I'm going to take them with me. Here we go. I don't know why it's taking so long. I think their site's having some trouble this morning. I think they're like $3. And at first I was like, you know what I don't need? I don't need more player spells. Like I don't need spells. Why, Rob, did you make spells? And then I was like, oh my God, these aren't spells. These are new monster abilities. Yeah, it's $2.79. And I think it's 24. Let me make sure. Yeah, 24 new spells. And they are they're awful and they're awesome. And I love them. So, wow. Yeah, they're having trouble. So then when I got them, I realized these aren't just spells that a player is going to get. These are spells my monsters are going to get. And it essentially adds like a whole new layer of cool things you can give to your monsters. So they're great. And for $3, it's definitely worth picking up. And if you are planning to run undead or fiendish spellcasters in any of your games, swapping in some of these spells are just awesome. And one thing about them is particularly for Tomb of Annihilation, many of the spells are, if it drops you to 0, you die. So they are lethal spells too. And then they go the full gambit. Like the 9th level one is this incredible, like fireball style bug infestation thing that sits around and you move around and it eats up everything in its path. It's really crazy good. So I'm gonna end today's show by plugging. Let's see, in monsters like. So I recommend it. Anyway, we have hit 11 o'clock. So we have Tilda DeWilda says, I'm definitely getting that. Yeah, I was really surprised. And I wish I could show it to you. Let me see. If I log in, I'm not going to log in. That's a pain in the ass. I was really surprised at how awesome they were when I bought them. Like I bought them because I love Rob and I love what he does. And I was like, sure, I'll pick up any. And $3, it's half a cup of coffee around here anyway. I want a fancy coffee. So I picked them up and then immediately was like, oh my God, this is perfect for Tomb of Annihilation. Like these are just awesome. I'm going to pull these things out and my players are going to be like, what in the hell is that? Are you kidding me? My blood is boiling in my vein. What? It's really good. So a full-size preview. Let's see if I can do that real quick. Full-size preview. Resource not. Oh, this thing's just. I don't know what's going on. It's bad. So anyway, go pick it up. It's $3. It's totally worth it. Print them out. I print them out on double-sided paper, so there's only like 3.5 pages. And I'm going to just crumple them up and throw them in my bag. And like, I like them because they're like on this like nasty paper. And like, these are, blasphemies. Like I've got access to magic. That's terrible. And I get it. And my players don't get it because their brains would melt if they tried to memorize these spells. Yeah, Beck says, Rob makes good stuff, totally worth the price. He does. In fact, Rob Schwab now has a new Kickstarter. Man, I really want to play more Shadow of the Demon Lord. I want to play so many games, and, yeah. So Rob Schwab is currently running a new Kickstarter. I wonder if my internet is sucking. Although if that were true, let's see, backed projects. I'm not logging in. Created by Rob Schwab. 3 created. Here we go. Occult Philosophies is his new Kickstarter. It's up to 28,000 right now with 525 backers, and it should have more than that. So this is an entirely new book for Shadow of the Demon Lord that's filled with awesome spells, and 192 page book. And he did an interview with James Intercasso on Tabletop Babble recently, where he talked about the spells and the flavor of the spells, and they're incredible. Like, they're not just like the mechanics are just the mechanics, but the descriptions of the spells were just crazy. My mind was blown like this orc here. I was like, oh, I gotta have it. So I backed it. Like, even though I don't play Shadow that much, and I've got like a ton of Shadow of the Demon Lord stuff sitting on my shelf because I backed the last Kickstarter. His Kickstarters, at least the Shadow Kickstarter, was the best dollar value I ever got in a Kickstarter. Like, I got like 28 PDFs for what I paid for, and I don't think I paid that much. I got like the hardcover book in physical, and then all the rest was digital, but I got like 28 PDFs. It was incredible. And a lot of, kind of neat to read. And I think like as a DM, it's, even if we don't get a chance to play all this stuff, it's really great to just look at other systems and not look at the mechanics, although a lot of people focus on the mechanics, but just look at the theme and look at the art and look at the story and just let that go into our brains. And then let that, then as they say in Apocalypse World, then vomit it back out again when we're running our games, which is kind of gross. But given that we're talking about Shadow of the Demon Lord, that's probably an acceptable term of phrase. So pick up Blasphemies of Borboalish. It's really cool. And I think that is where we'll end our show. So I want to thank everybody for coming along. Thanks to all of you in the chat. Mom, thank you for watching. And I will see all of you guys in a week. Have a great week.